One day, when I was a Kid Scout, I was on a hike with my patrol when I saw a lizard, and I decided, without thinking, to chase after it. The lizard led me on a merry chase, but in the end it was able to escape by crawling under a big rock. Giving up on the chase, I turned around to head back to my patrol when I suddenly realized that I had lost my sense of direction, and I had no idea which way to go. At first I felt confused, but soon I felt a growing sense of alarm. I called out the names of my patrol mates, hoping they'd hear, but I received no calls in reply. I soon realized that my lizard had led me far from the trail. I heard only the cawing of a raven, way up in a big dead tree. It sounded as if he was saying, "What a dope, now you're lost." And you know what? He was right. I was lost, and I had no idea what to do. My fellow Cat Scouts, strive to never let something like this happen to you. But in case it does, you'll be glad that you paid close attention to today's survival training. That's because today you will learn some critical skills that will enable you to survive in the wilderness should you ever find yourself lost and left to fend for yourself until you can be found or until you can walk or crawl back to safety. Whether you have to bug out of your home because of an emergency like a nuclear attack or a zombie apocalypse, or are stranded deep in the forest after getting lost on a hike, survival training will help you survive that emergency and maybe save a few other lives as well. Well, except maybe for the zombie thing. Today I won't spend much time covering what to do when you need to evacuate your home, since we've already covered most of that in Cat Scout's exceptional tactical course on emergency preparedness. I'll just remind you that you should always keep a store of essentials and a go bag on hand, and if you don't remember what those are, you can get a list from Scout Ripley on your way out.
Who's Ripley?
If your emergency requires an evac from your home because of this, make sure to wear a gas mask. If you do not currently have one in your go bag, order one from Amazon today. These kiddies are ready. But as a scout, the odds are that any survival situation you encounter will be in the wilderness, which may expose you to several survival stressors, including cold, thirst, and hunger. Although there is no way to precisely judge things like how long you can last without water or how long you can survive in cold conditions, there are some good estimates. One of my personal favorites is the rule of threes. If it's cold outside, you can survive for about 3 hours before your body shows significant effects of hypothermia. This can cause your ears and paws to fall off, which can not only be unpleasant, but impede your ability to hike out or run away from a wild animal intent on eating you. Keep your ears and paws attached to the rest of you at all times by staying warm. Without water, you can probably survive for 3 days. That is, unless you get squirts from drinking bad water, which will just dehydrate you more quickly. For this reason, keep your canteen full and with you whenever you are planning to get lost, as well as some water purification tablets. I keep some tucked into my official Cat Scouts tactical underbriefs, just in case. Not that I'm ever planning to get lost again. Once was enough. But just saying. As regards hunger, you might last 3 weeks without food, depending upon how much flab you're carrying, as long as your energy expenditure is very low, like watching TV or napping. Again, that does not mean that you will be up and about and active throughout the 3 weeks. It just means that you can survive and not die if you don't eat food for 3 weeks. Another rule is what I like to call Dirk's Rule. Dirk's Rule states thusly: you cannot live without thinking for 3 seconds. That means it takes about 3 seconds to do something dumb that is horrible enough to get you killed if you're not thinking. So, stay calm, practice situational awareness, and don't do anything without putting some thought into it. If it looks like the scout next to you is going more than 3 seconds without thinking, give him a pinch or a shove to keep him from doing something dumb. That means you, Scout Felix. When you come to the realization that you are in a predicament that might require rescue, you should stop, admit that you have a situation, then initiate the triage portion of the survival protocol. STOP, S-T-O-P, will help you remember this portion of the protocol. S, stop and take care of your immediate safety. T, think about what you should do. O, observe your surroundings. And P, Plan your next move. It's important that you don't waste valuable time chasing your tail by hiking in circles or staring at a map and heading in a different direction willy-nilly. No siree. That's called panicking, and it leads to ruin. Don't do that. Instead, stop, think, observe, and make a plan. Taking care of your immediate safety will include administering first aid if necessary and removing yourself from harm's way, if possible. Next, execute triage. Assess your situation and possible solutions, and develop a plan to successfully emerge from the quagmire you are in. It's a given that first aid is important to attend to before anything else, but after that, most scouts who are texting during my survival lecture think that finding dinner is the most important task to take care of after first aid. Well, that happened to Scout Tom the Texting Tuxty 2 years ago. He had dinner, and then some wild animals had him for dinner. All that was left was his woggle. His last text was, and I quote, "I think I hear." Tom the Texting Tuxty might have survived if he'd paid attention during survival training. Then he'd know that, after first aid, the next most important task is to seek shelter, which often means you'll have to build it yourself. This is difficult to do in the dark and takes several hours at best if you're not a highly trained and experienced tactical survival specialist like me or Scout Ripley.
Who's Ripley?
So don't wait until sundown to admit you're in a pickle and might need to seek rescue. Remember, if it's going to get cold, you've only got 3 hours until hypothermia threatens your survival. First, you'll need to scout out the best location for the shelter. You don't want it atop a windswept rocky outcropping or on damp ground. You'll probably want to position it near a tree or a boulder that you can use in the construction of your shelter. Don't build it in the bottom of deep valleys or ravines where cold air settles at night. Next, look around and see what materials are available. Don't cut down trees in violation of the Leave No Trace pledge. You don't have to build a mansion like you see in Architectural Digest. You want a shelter that's just big enough to keep you cozy, provide a barrier against the elements, and keep you safe from anything that might eat you. If you build it too big, it will be difficult to heat. It will also decrease your energy and the time you have available to build a fire and hunt for dinner. The kind of shelter you build will be determined by the number of scouts in your group. If you're the only one who got lost, your shelter can be as simple as the cocoon. For that, you create a large pile of leaves and then burrow underneath them. Another basic shelter is the fallen tree. If you find a fallen tree with enough room to wriggle into, you can use that as a shelter. You can fashion a roof from available pine branches. If you find a fallen tree without enough room under it, or a rock or small overhang, you can build a simple lean-to. Start by leaning fallen limbs against the object, such as the top edge of an overhang, to create a wall. Lean the limbs at an angle to help shield rain. Cover the leaning limbs with leaves, boughs, pine needles, bark, or whatever the forest offers. When you have built a thick wall, you can crawl underneath into your shelter. Remember to make your shelter no bigger than you need to fit you and anybody else with you. The bigger the space, the harder it is to keep warm. You can also build a lean-to by placing one end of a long stick across a low limb of a tree and propping up the other end of the stick with 2 more sticks. Tie the ends of the sticks together with your bootlaces or a belt. This can be a little challenging if there's no one with you who can help keep the sticks together while you lace them together. Lean more sticks against the horizontal stick. Then pile leaves and other forest debris against the leaning sticks until you have a wall. Once again, a fire on the open side of the lean-to will add much heat to your room. If you have a tarp, sheet of plastic, or a space blanket with you, and some rope or cord, tie a line between 2 trees, tie it low to the ground with just enough room for you to lie beneath. Stretch the tarp over the line. Place large rocks or logs on the ends of the tarp to hold it in place with the edges close to the ground. If it's snowing, tie the line off higher on the trees. Steeper walls will shed snow better. Now you have an emergency tent. Once you have established the base of operations, or ops base as we like to call it in super cool survivalist lingo, it's time to build a fire, both for warmth and potentially as a signaling method to help rescuers locate you. Once you build a fire, you can send out your first distress signal. Fires are visible at night, and rescuers can smell the smoke. During daylight hours, you can send smoke signals by dropping a wet blanket over the fire and releasing 3 big puffs of smoke, the universal distress signal. We frequently see them from the Cat Scouts Rescue Helo, thanks to the Cat Scout survival training and the propensity of our members to head for the hills at high speed without thinking at the slightest provocation, such as a twig snapping or an ember popping. So, be sure to carry a wet blanket around with you at all times, just in case you find yourself zooming miles away from a perceived threat and lose your way. A note of caution, however: if you are too gung-ho in building your fire, it could get out of hand. Although that's effective in getting the attention of rescue crews, you run the risk of getting barbecued, so be prepared for evasive maneuvers. In the unfortunate event that your signal fire progresses to become a raging inferno, you are advised to get upwind of the flames. You can determine wind direction by viewing which way smoke is moving. If you are on a slope, consider moving downhill, as hot air masses created by fire tend to move up. If you can't find good shelter from the roaring flames, look for a trench or a deep gully and dig yourself into the side, covering the opening with a tarp or blanket. Space blankets are a good choice here, and you will be glad that you followed the survival training and put one in your knapsack before you decided to get lost in the woods. Once you have your shelter built and a fire going and under control, you can turn your attention to drinking water. By this point in your epic, you and any others in your party may be getting thirsty. If you are into your second or third day, dehydration may set in, which can make a scout fumble, mumble, stumble, and grumble. In other words, they are becoming too parched to perform their survival task and need water as soon as possible. Some nice hot catmint tea would do the trick, or even a few licks from a canteen full of metallic tasting water. So get water. This may be easier said than done, depending upon the situation. If there is a lake or stream nearby, collect water and boil it over your fire. If you are not near a water source, you may have to get creative. For example, you can leverage something called transpiration to collect water from the plants and trees around you. Transpiration is like sweating, but by trees. To do that, enclose a branch on a leafy tree or bush with a plastic bag, which you just so happen to have with you because you took this training. Close up the opening of the bag so it's airtight. For maximum efficiency, the bag should be in the sun. Then wait. You'll see condensation fairly quickly, and over the course of a day you should be able to collect enough tree sweat to stave off dehydration. And no, it won't help to water the tree or bush to make it sweat faster. If you skip this training, and therefore did not think to enter the wilderness with some large plastic bags, you can use an article of clothing, a neckerchief, or even, if you're really desperate, Timmy's underpants as a moisture collector. Now you will understand why it's better to always carry a plastic bag with you. Consult your botanical identification notes to ensure you don't try to collect tree sweat from a poisonous tree or shrub. And no, setting fire to the tree or bush will not make it sweat faster. When the condensation from the tree or bush has reached a point where it can be collected, remove the bag and pour its contents into your parched mouths. If you're lucky, there will be bugs in it to serve as a mini-meal. Which brings us to survival food. It's only once your immediate survival needs for first aid, shelter, fire for warmth and signaling, and drinking water are met that you can attend to the problem of food. With up to 3 weeks of built-in food packed into the typical Cat Scouts fat reserves, food comes last, but certainly not least. The Cat Scouts Survival Manual states thusly: you can, with relatively few exceptions, eat anything that crawls, swims, walks, or flies. For as many a wilderness survivor can tell you, the longer your survival epic goes on, the more likely finding food may become a serious problem. This can be true even if you are prepared and have wandered off with some emergency food, such as a can of tuna. For it is all too common that even the most prepared Cat Scout, in an effort to follow lightweight camping principles, will have become lost without having the all-important can opener in his survival kit. Notwithstanding the possibility that there may in fact be a can opener blade on one of your party's Cat Scouts tactical survival knives, this very fact may be overlooked or forgotten under the stress of the survival situation. That's when the sheer cleverness of Cat Scout survival skills training will stand you in good stead. Opening a can of tuna without the aid of a can opener is a crucial survival skill, a skill that I will now teach you. After all, can openers can fail, but Cat Scouts should not, else all will go hungry, and quite needlessly. So, pay close attention and learn a skill that may someday save your life. First, you must have a can of tuna. Second, you must have a rubber. That's one of you. The rubber turns the can upside down and places it on a flat rock surface. The rubber grasps the can firmly. The rubber then rubs the top of the tuna can on the rock with all of his might, over and over and over and over again. You might want to take turns. After a time, the top will eventually be ground off. When you first see the tuna juice leaking down the rock, you'll know it will only take 3 or 4 more hours of rubbing to get the whole thing open. The rubber may have to fend off starving scouts and hungry woodland creatures who smell the tuna juice. Chaos could ensue, so the rubber must maintain his situational awareness. Your natural hunting instincts will serve you well in a wilderness survival situation, especially after all the tuna is gone, or while waiting for the rubber to complete the task of opening the can, which can often take 2 to 3 days. If you are successful in hunting or fishing, take care to eat every last morsel, including the guts, bones, fur, and skin. First of all, those are the best parts, and the most nutritious as well. If you're a pansy who has never eaten anything but canned cat food, now's your chance to experience a hearty, man-catly meal. If, for some reason, you cannot eat all the best parts, be sure to bury them deep in the ground, at least 2 miles away from your makeshift camp. Wild animals sniff out leftovers from a distance as a way to find tender, young, juicy cats to eat. You can sleep easier if you don't have squirrel guts piled up outside your tent. If you're in survival mode, you're likely going to be worried about whether you have enough food to keep you starving prior to your rescue. But don't forget, what goes down your hatch needs to come out the other end, and so when a bowel evacuating situation occurs and you don't have any cat litter available, do you know what to do? You're going to have to poop al fresco.
Psst, Dirk. Den Master doesn't want you saying poop.
You're going to have to crap al fresco. First, select a site that's downwind from camp and some distance away. Dig a hole like you're digging to China. When the lip of the hole reaches your armpits, you can stop digging and start crapping. Once you've filled the hole with your backdoor brownies, cover it thoroughly. If wild animals sniff out your scat, they'll be looking for you. When it's time to wipe, if you don't have a buddy along to lick you clean, some leaves will get the job done lickety-split. But make sure it's not poison oak or poison ivy. To identify the plants properly, memorize this. If it's hairy, it's a berry. If it's shiny, watch your hiney. You don't want a repeat of what happened to Scout Randy last year. Yes, that's how he got the nickname Red Rear Randy. Your ability to survive an epic adventure depends upon your mastery of cat scoutcraft, as well as your ability to think outside the litter box and come up with innovative solutions to the challenges you encounter. For example, all the time you spent in your life chasing flies will now be put to good use. Flies are an excellent source of protein, and if you're not near a lake or stream where you can catch fish, or you haven't been successful hunting, insects may be your best food choice. To attract insects, rub rotting meat, fish guts, or tuna juice all over your body and clothing. In no time flat, you'll have dinner delivered right to your face. Anywho, you can use animal carcasses and entrails to your advantage. You can often find vicious deer antlers in the woods. They lose them every year. They not only make great spears, but you can disguise yourself as a vicious deer as you travel through the forest. They're more likely to leave you alone if they think you're one of them, or that you ate one of them. And if, when you're hunting, you catch and eat a female squirrel or rabbit, you can extract your pee and use it to attract male squirrels or rabbits. As you rip the body apart, take care to leave the bladder intact and then milk it for any urinary matter it contains. By the way, how do you catch a squirrel? You climb a tree and act like a nut. Hey, who writes this stuff? Come on. Although it's most likely your survival emergency will occur in the woods, if you have occasion to be in an arid climate like the desert or a deserted island, a lot of the protocols you're learning today are similar to survival methods in the woods and other areas. You'll still need a shelter, a fire, food, and water. If there are coconut trees around you, coconuts can fulfill 3 essential survival needs: food, water, and fashion. Coconut water contains vital nutrients and sugar that can keep you fed and alive for quite a long time. If you can find coconut trees, make sure that you use the water as food. However, remember that if you drink too much coconut water, it can give you the squirts. In that case, just eat some powdered charcoal. It can help you ease your stomach bugs. But don't go eating some fancy, easy light briquettes. Stick with the charcoal left over from last night's fire, or some you brought with you from your fish tank filter at home. After you've hollowed out the coconut and consumed the contents, you can fashion a dapper hat from the shell. This will not only provide you with a stylish fashion statement, but will also keep your head and ears from getting sunburned. By the way, why should you cook kale in coconut oil? Because it makes it easier to slide it right into the trash. Ha, okay, that's a little better. If you find yourself in a desert or hot, dry wilderness, it is critical that you keep your body cool. Although finding shade can be difficult, you can create a makeshift cooling hat using just two things, a rag and your pee.
Dirk, you can't say pee.
Although finding shade can be difficult, you can create a makeshift cooling hat using just two things, a rag and your piss. Take a piece of clothing that you can wrap around your head and give it a good soaking with your smelly yellow fluids. Wrap this damp cloth around your head to stay cool. It may sound gross, but trust me, you will be much more comfortable with a piss rag on your head.
Dirk,
You will be much more comfortable with a tickle turban on your head. As I previously mentioned, certain survival items are handy to carry with you at all times. So, even if you are just going for a short hike, carry emergency supplies with you. Maybe a couple of space blankets, a wet blanket, an axe, and survival essentials stowed in a pill bottle. In this case, the straw contains Vaseline-infused cotton that can be used as a fire starter. Cut short lengths of straw no taller than the height of your container. Holding one end closed with the pliers, use a flame to seal the end. This will only take a minute. Once it's sealed, stuff it with the cotton and Vaseline. Then seal up the other end. Roll up a length of duct tape, wrap fishing line around one of the straws, and add a fish hook and weight, a razor blade, matches, maybe some water purification tablets, and anything else you think you might need in an emergency. Oh, and don't forget to include some emergency payphone coins. Like the water purification tabs, you can store them in the payphone coin pocket of your Cat Scouts tactical underbriefs. By the way, remember that story I told you about getting lost when I was a Kid Scout after chasing that lizard under a rock? Turns out, my whole patrol was hiding on the other side of that rock, waiting for me to crack under pressure so they could tease me. If Scout Felix hadn't sneezed and given them away, their practical joke could have gone on for hours. Anywho, that's when I decided to make getting my survival skills merit badge a priority. Okay, Cat Scouts, it sounds like Scout Ripley has brought the rescue helo around for me, so that's it for this survival training session. While I hope you never have to put it to use, feel free to send me a smoke signal should the need arise. This is Cat Scout Dirk, reminding you to oil your carabiners. Over and out.
who in the Sam Hill is Ripley?
Anybody know if you can use that tin can trick on beer cans?
Harry, you and your hooligan friends are going to have to leave. Do you want me to call the paddy wagon?